الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الولي الحميد الفعال لما يريد وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين أرواحنا له فداء. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يريد الله أن يبين لكم ويهديكم سنن الذين من قبلكم ويتوب عليكم والله عليم حكيم. صدق الله عليم العظيم.
اللهم صل على محمد.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. In continuing our discussion about verse 26 of Surah An-Nisa, that's chapter 4, verse 26, and particularly focusing on this point where in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala He states that He desires to guide you by the tradition and by the customs of those who have come before you. We mentioned yesterday that this tradition and customs that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wishes to guide mankind by, the ummah by. These are the traditions and customs of the prophets. And we extracted this point, or we focus on this point, that it is those individuals, such as the prophets, those individuals who are in a position of leadership and authority, or at the very least, those individuals who have influence within the society, in their household, such as the elders, their parents, that these individuals will be those who establish custom and traditions, who maintain customs and traditions, or either they change customs and traditions. And this is why it was important for Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam to rise up and re-establish or make it known that Yazid, who had risen to power, position of authority, that he was out to change the sunnah of Rasulullah. So Imam Hussein, he says that I am leaving from Medina, and I wish and I desire an asira bi sirati jaddi wa abi Ali ibn Abi Talib, that I want to walk upon the path of my grandfather and my father Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. So he went to maintain that seerah, that sunnah, the tradition and custom. In fact, when we look at the letter that Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam, he wrote in response to the many letters that he received from Kufa. He begins this letter stating that yes, O people of Kufa, you have recognized that someone has come into a position of power, of leadership. But you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is the one who has chosen Rasulullah. And after Rasulullah, based on what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted for the ummah, it was the right of Ahlul Bayt, it was the right of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and thereafter the Imams after Amir al-Mu'mineen, that we have the right in order to maintain that position, to be in that position. And this is exactly, or paralleling what Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam stated. We mentioned yesterday that when he questioned وَمَا بَالُ الْأَقْوَامِ غَيِّرُوا سُنَّةَ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ. That what were people thinking? That they were changing the sunnah, the tradition, the way of Rasulullah? Meaning that they were bypassing the walayat of Ahlul Bayt, the blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala He had sent forth for mankind. And that's what Imam Ali said. غَيِّرُوا النَّعْمَةِ, meaning that they changed the sunnah of Rasulullah was equivalent to changing the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A blessing, again, that blessing, as we mentioned, the sunnah, as verse 26 of Surah An-Nisa, it highlights that sunnah, in it is ilm, knowledge, and hikmah. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He put forth the sunnah, knowledge and wisdom, but people rejected it. That knowledge and wisdom, which is embodied and represented by Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdhalu salatu wassalam. So Imam Hussein, he points this out, that yes, in his response he says, you all have recognized that it is the Ahlul Bayt who has a right to this position of guiding and leading the ummah. And then he closes the letter with these words. He says, وَقَدْ بَعَثْتُ إِلَيْكُمْ رَسُولِي بِهَذَا الْكِتَابِ. And by this response, I am sending you my messenger. Again, to convey his desire to stand with the people of Kufa, that if they will stand for justice and if they will stand for what is right, Imam Hussein says, yes, fine, I will come. وَأَدْعُوكُمْ إِلَى كِتَابِ اللَّهِ وَسُنَّةِ نَبِيِّهِ. So we see that Imam Hussein, again, he's emphasizing his mission. We mentioned once he made the statement as he was leaving from Medina, but here in the letter to the people of Kufa, he's re-emphasizing. He says, I'm calling you towards the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the sunnah of Rasulullah. Then he states, فَإِن تَسْمَعُوا قَوْلِي أَهْدِيكُمْ إِلَى سَبِيلِ الرَّشَادِ وَالسَّلَامُ عَلَيْكُمْ وَرَحْمَةُ اللَّهِ وَبَرَكَاتُهُ. He says, if you hear my statement, subhanAllah, Imam Hussein, again, every word that is used, very precise. He says, yes, I'm calling you to the book of Allah. I'm calling you to the sunnah of Rasulullah. فَإِن تَسْمَعُوا قَوْلِي. But only if you heed what I am stating. That my words should not fall upon deaf ears. If you hear me, then you will be guided to the right path. But unfortunately, we know that the statement of Imam Hussein fell upon deaf ears, just as the statements of Imam Ali and Imam Hassan. They fell upon deaf ears. That the position of leadership was taken lightly. That any and everyone can come and be at the helm of the ummah to do whatever they want or whatever they please with the ummah, to change the sunnah of Rasulullah. In fact, when we look at the Muslim ummah today, wherever we put our finger on the map, Pakistan, Bahrain, Lebanon, Iraq, Afghanistan, wherever we put our finger, we see this problem. That because the walayat of Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdhalu salatu wassalam was overlooked, and the idea and the concept of leadership and true leadership has not taken place in the minds of the ummah. So this is why we see that most of the Muslim world is internal. That someone comes, of course, and everyone is coming claiming, La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah. Yes, I am Muslim. Yes, I am following the way of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But when we examine and we look closely, we see that no, there are many things which are going against the Sunnah of Rasulullah. And why has this happened? Why has not this Sunnah of Rasulullah, the Sunnah of the Prophets, why hasn't it taken its proper place within society, among the believers, among the Ummah? If it had taken place, then the Ummah wouldn't be in its state. And this is what Imam Ali, and we mentioned this briefly yesterday, this is what he pointed out. He says, when the people began to change the way of Rasulullah, were they not afraid that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring upon them a calamity? Again, this calamity, we see it now, that the turmoil that we live in. So we have to question that, why hasn't this sunnah taking place? Why hasn't the way and the lifestyle of Rasulullah and the Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdal salatu wasalam taken its proper place? Analyzing this, we can see that there are perhaps three reasons. We can kind of clearly point out three possible reasons for this. On one hand, one of the reasons is that the tradition, or at least there were some things that have been put forth as traditions and customs which are not the tradition and customs of Rasulullah or Ahlul Bayt. They're put forth falsely that, oh, this is the tradition, or this is the custom. Of course, one of the first things in the early history of the Ummah, right after the passing of Rasulullah, was stated, oh, the prophets do not inherit. And because the prophets do not inherit or give inheritance, how can Fatima, salamullah alayha, inherit Fadak? How can this be claimed that this is hers? When the prophets, they don't leave inheritance. Although the Quran, it says that Sulaiman, he inherited from Dawood. But this was put forth as a tradition. It was put forth as a tradition that, well, whoever comes to a position of leadership, whether they're a just or oppressor, then it's okay. You're supposed to stand behind it. This is when we see that not only the tradition of Rasulullah, but the tradition of all of the prophets who came before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that they stood against oppression. That when Musa, he stood against Fir'aun, Salih against Thamud. This was the tradition, that the prophets worked to correct the society, correct the ills of the society, to stand up for those who were oppressed. But yet a tradition comes about, or at least a false tradition that comes about, the saints said, no, whoever is the leader, whoever takes that responsibility, then whether he's just or whether he is an oppressor, you stand by. And you just accept. This is on one hand. And on another hand, we see that, again, within the Ummah, within society, these are things, again, we may look at historically, and quite often these things, they stand out for us. Oh yeah, this happened, that happened. But even on a smaller scale, that things and customs, again, get established. And we take them as, oh, well, this is the way of Islam. And if we see someone do something different, we say, oh, this can't be Islam. And at times it's actually the opposite. I recall once when it happened to be a weekend and we were at one of the centers, our Shia centers. So we were all doing some work. I went to help out to help prepare for one of the events that we were having. It came time for Salah. And because there was quite a big bit of work to do to clean up, so I said, okay, well, we're going to pray Salat. I said, but let's pray Dhuhr, and we go back to work. And then we'll pray Asr later. I suggested this. Some objected. Says, no, how can we do that? No, those who are Shia, they have to pray Dhuhr and Asr together. I said, where are you bringing this from? He says, no, this is one of the signs of a Shia. I said, SubhanAllah, who said that this is a sign of a Shia, that they have to pray Dhuhr and Asr together? Oh, this is known as custom, as tradition. So I asked, I said, whose custom? Whose tradition? The custom and the tradition of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is to pray Dhuhr and to separate the Salat and the pray Asr. His custom and his tradition is also at times to pray Dhuhr and to pray Asr together. He did both. What is actually recommended is to separate your Salah. This is recommended. And I mentioned this, I said, go to the book of any of our mujtahideen and see what they say. And their ruling is based upon the hadith, the tradition of Rasulullah, the tradition of Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdal salatu wasalam. I said, no, they separated the Salah. You begin with your recommended prayers, you pray the Dhuhr, afterwards you do dua. You may go and do other things, and you come back and you do other recommended prayers for us. They separated the Salah. At times, based on travel, or at times based on convenience, they would pray together. So both are allowed. On the other hand, I had a similar question by email. One Sunni colleague in the university says, why do you always pray your Salah together? So I responded again with a question. Why do you not pray your Salat together? Because in Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, there are hadith stating that no, you can pray this Salat together. But again, it has become custom, established in tradition that no, Sunnis always separate, and they have to separate. If they don't separate, then they're not following the Sunnah. And Shias, they always pray together, and if they separate, then they're not following the Sunnah. No, subhanAllah. Sunnah of Rasulullah is the Sunnah of Rasulullah. And again, this goes back to this point that we were mentioning in the beginning, that these traditions, these customs, what they provide for us is knowledge. But that knowledge, without wisdom and understanding how to apply it, and many times it's useless. Okay, if I have studied computer science, I've studied engineering, but I do not put my knowledge to practice, then what good is all of those years of studying? That if we see that the Sunnah of Rasulullah is sometimes you pray together, sometimes you separate. If I have time, I will separate. If my time is short, then I won't separate. But to put oneself in a position, and this is one thing that happened again, a colleague from the university, someone who became Muslim, became Sunni. And one day I noticed that he would come and he would pray dhuhr. And then he would say that, well, I have to change my classes. So why do you have to change your classes? He says, because I always pray Asr al-Qadha. I never prayed on time. Why? Because I have class during that time. I have 2 classes back to back. So the time of Salat for Asr goes out, and I always make Qadha. I said, SubhanAllah, why don't you join your prayers? He says, no, she is doing it. I said, no, this is in Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim. The Prophet did this. He did it even at times that he wasn't traveling. He said, look, understand the sunnah of Rasulullah. But more importantly, understand how to apply that. So much of, or one of the reasons why the sunnah of Rasulullah and the sunnah of Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdal salatu wasalam has not taken place, or its proper place in society, is because, again, false customs and traditions are established. Or even if there's sometimes some customs that get established, and there's nothing wrong with the custom, there's nothing wrong with the tradition, but when we attach to it, or we say that, no, this is exactly what Rasulullah did, and to change it, or to say no, or try to correct it, people object from it. But if something is good, maybe some people apply the sunnah to Rasulullah. And here's one thing that may be palatable, because there are many things, especially with regards to Muharram, customs or traditions, some of the things that used to be stated about what happened in Karbala. Alhamdulillah, Shaykh Mutahari, in one of his books, Hamasi Husseini, he corrected some of the wrong things that used to be said about the events of Karbala, just to make people emotional and cry. So he corrected those things. But there's still plenty of other things that, again, that are associated with the customs of Muharram and mourning for Imam Hussein. And when we examine these things, they are not according to the sirat, the sunnah, the tradition of Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdal salatu wasalam. And I don't want to go into those things at this moment, because some of them are sensitive. Again, it is one of those things that some things, if you bring up, he says, no, this is not among your sunnahs. People say, oh, well, then you don't love Imam Hussein. You don't follow Imam Hussein. You don't follow Ahlul Bayt. But if you ask me, okay, fine. Where is this in the sirat, in the sunnah, in the tradition of Ahlul Bayt? Who mourned more and was more saddened by the shahadat of Imam Hussein than the Ahlul Bayt themselves? Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salatu wasalam, he would cry every day for Imam Hussein. At the sight of water, he would cry. So we say that what we have established and what we may falsely associate with him, we are more passionate about Imam Hussein than Imam Zayn al-Abidin. But again, not to step on these eggshells, but just to bring about some consciousness that examine, what are we doing? What really is the tradition of Rasulullah? What really is the tradition of Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdal salatu wasalam? That when we grasp onto this, when the society, again, the ummah, truly revives the way of Ahlul Bayt, then all of these issues, problems, these will begin to subside. When we truly grasp upon the tradition of Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdal salatu wasalam, that inshallah the Imam of our time, he will come. Because he will see that we are ready to walk in the footsteps of Rasulullah. That we are ready to walk upon the path of Amir al-Mu'mineen and Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdal salatu wasalam. To give you one example, again, that's palatable, that is not going to stir the pot too much, or rock the boat too much. The idea, or at least what has become a custom or tradition, even among us as Shia, Because you cannot say it is a bad custom or a bad tradition. No, mashallah, it's something that it is permissible, it's allowed. That those of us who are not by blood related to Rasulullah, many of us were white among us. Those who are related, they were black among us. But I recall that once in Qom, that some of my colleagues who were from Bahrain, and they were Sayyid, that when they went forth to take their monthly stipends, their scholarship from the different offices of Muraja, of course they have their ID card, that these Sadat, they all wore white amamas, and they wore white kavas. And it was interesting the reaction that they would often get when they would give their card. People would look at them, and these are also, some of them scholars, some laymen, they would say it. Why are you wearing a white amama? You should be wearing a black amama. And their response was that it is the sunnah of Rasulullah to wear white amama. He wore a white amama. He says, do you deny this? Is it not in the hadith? He says, yes, they wore white amama. Imam Hassan al-Mushtaba, alayhi salatu, he wore a green amama, a dark green amama. But he did not wear a black amama. It was actually the Abbasids who began to wear black amamas. And they did so, again, in association with Muharram. They said that we were mourning the shahadat of Imam Hussein, alayhi salatu, so they brought the custom of wearing the black amama. But then it became adopted within the society. But today, if we see that, oh, well, here's a Sayyid and he's wearing a white amama, it will seem strange to us. Why is the Sayyid wearing a white amama? Or someone deny, oh, well, he's wearing white amama. He's not Sayyid. But in fact, he is Sayyid. So, again, by not allowing the true sunnah of Rasulullah and the Ahlul Bayt to take its proper place in society without, again, these biases or changing it, that we fall short of, again, rising to that position that we should be in society. We fall short of understanding that which the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt wanted to teach us. Another reason, or possible reason, why the sunnah of Ahlul Bayt, the sunnah of Rasulullah, perhaps has not taken its proper place within society, is through misinterpretation. Yes, perhaps a custom and tradition has been handed down to us properly, but again, misunderstanding what that custom and that tradition is. On one occasion, an individual companion by the name of A'la ibn Ziyad al-Harithi, he came to Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu and complained to Imam Ali about his brother. He says, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says, my brother Asim ibn Ziyad, he says that he has left his wife, his children, his family, and he doesn't take care of them. Why? Because he wants to be a zahid, he wants to be a hermit, he's a recluse. And he's not fulfilling his duty and his responsibility. He let himself go, doesn't do anything, doesn't take any responsibility. So Imam Ali alayhi, he went and he found this Asim ibn Ziyad. And then he sat with him. He says, Ya Abdullah, O servant of Allah, why are you oppressing yourself? So Asim, he responded, he says that I wanted to instill within myself this trait of taqwa. This trait of leaving the dunya, that I have no need for this dunya. That I have divorced this world. But Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam, he says, no, you are oppressing yourself. And you're failing to fulfill your duties and your responsibility to your family or within society. Stated that Asim, he took a moment of silence, and then he responded to Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. He says, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, but you're one who is azad. You're one who has divorced this world. You're the individual that sews and patches your clothes. You're the one who eats tough barley bread. He says, so I am only following what you are doing. Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam, he says that here you have misunderstood. He says, don't compare yourself to me. He says, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala farada ala immatil muslimin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it wajib upon the leaders, upon the imams, and yuqaddira anfusahum bida'af al-nas. That we must look at those who are the most weakest and poorest individuals within the society, and we must base how we live based on that. So that those who are poor, they don't lose heart. They don't feel bad that they are in that state of poverty. So that inshallah they will come up. They will raise themselves in society. He says, so we have to base our lives upon that. This is not for you. Yes, you can be someone who is pious, someone who is humble, but you cannot be exactly like the Imam. This is not your position. In fact, you must partake of the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not put these things aside. My duty and my responsibility as an Imam is different than yours. And this is why we also see that in the time of Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, that when Imam Sadiq, he was approached in a similar way, that Imam Sadiq, he wore a very nice kabah, an abba. Someone approached Imam Sadiq. This individual, it's a famous story, he had on it a wool abba and kabah, very rough, with patches. And he came to Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam. He says, I'm surprised at you, that you're dressing like this, and your grandfather, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he walked around with patches that he sewed in his own clothes, that he would sew his own shoes. He says, how can you dress like this? This is not proper. Because you're supposed to be an example for everyone else. So Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, he says, let me see that what you have inside your kabah. That if your kabah, which is made out of wool, and it's rough on the skin, what are you wearing under it? So when Imam Sadiq, he opened it, this individual had nice, soft clothes on the inside of his kabah. And he said that what you're doing is riyah. You're just doing this for show. That you want to show and pretend that you're humble, but when in reality, what you have under your clothes is something soft. Imam Sadiq, he says, I wear this nice kabah. He says, this is, again, because the status of the ummah has risen. That during the time of Imam Ali, the great deal of the ummah was impoverished. He says, but this time people were affluent. And so I must dress in this way, again, so that the ummah They don't, again, to decline or to go backwards. He says, so I wear a nice kibbah. He says, and this is to maintain the level and the status within the society. He says, but what I really wear for myself and for Allah is this. And he opened his kibbah and he had rough and coarse clothes under his kibbah. He says, this is what I wear. He says, this is what I prefer to wear. He says, I wear this for me and my relationship and understanding of myself before Allah, that I'm nothing, that I'm a servant. But so that the society can stay at a good level, then I wear this. Between these two hadith, the story of Imam Ali and the story of Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, one of the things is that we see and that we can extract that leads us to the third possible reason why the sunnah of Rasulullah, why the sunnah of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salatu wasalam has not taken its proper place within society. One, as we said, the false hadith or traditions and customs. The second is the misinterpretation. The third thing, again, that we understand from both of these is the application of the sunnah of Ahlul Bayt. How to apply the sunnah of Ahlul Bayt. How do we, again, understand this custom and this tradition, and it aids us for this time. Because many of us, we have not looked upon the tradition of Ahlul Bayt in this way. But if we did, if we examine and we study the tradition, the way of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad, we will see that in this time, and inshallah, if we taught our children, again, we gave them this knowledge, and for their time, for many generations afterwards, that they will be able to apply this knowledge to their time. One very simple thing, and I've mentioned this before, and I don't want to keep reiterating this, because maybe some of you have heard those lectures or speeches. But one thing that the Prophet recommends, that each time that you make your salat, you brush your teeth, you do miswak. At that time it was a stick, you brush your teeth. When we look at it, if we look at it just at the surface, oh, okay, just do the miswak. Something's mustahab, something's recommended. But if we pay close attention to it, this is, again, the epitome of hygiene. Because if we brushed our teeth every time we made salat, if we separated our salat, we would be brushing our teeth 5 times a day. If we joined our salat, our dhuhr, al-Asr, our Maghrib and Isha, we would be brushing our teeth 3 times a day. But actually, we wait until we go to the dentist, and the dentist says, oh, well, you have cavities, you have this, you have that, this is wrong with your teeth, that's wrong with your teeth. And we wait for the dentist to say, well, you should be brushing your teeth at least 3 times a day. Whereas if we had understood and we took the tradition of the Prophet ﷺ, the tradition of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wasalam, we gave it the proper position, the proper role in our lives, then we will see that we will be far much advanced than others. If we gave it its proper position in society, and in our lives, we will be in a better state. But we didn't take those traditions and customs as knowledge. We left it. Oh, well, these are things of the past. Rather than learning, extracting the knowledge from it, rather than living by those things, we left it. We put them aside. We didn't pay attention to them. Or we created our own things and our own customs, and we says, no, this is Islam. That we have to dress this way or dress that way. And when we look at again, granted, this may be okay, but when we say that, no, if you don't do this, it's something that we created, you don't do this, then you're not Muslim, or you don't love Ahlul Bayt. And this is not the criterion that they set. This is not the standard that the Prophet had set for us. In fact, when we look at the idea of sunnah and customs and traditions, and we understand the relationship between faith and tradition, because that's what's important, that we understand what is the relationship between those traditions that the Prophet established. Or sunnah in general, what is the relationship between that and faith and iman? One of the beautiful hadith of Imam Rida alayhi salatu wasalam, he states that a believer, and one who desires to be a true believer, he has to have 3 traits, 3 characteristics. He says, sunnatun min rabbi, wa sunnatun min nabiyyihi, wa sunnatun min waliyyihi. He has to have 3 traits. And these 3 traits are all sunnah. One is the sunnah from his Lord, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and a sunnah from the Prophet, and a sunnah from his wali, from the Imams alayhi salatu wasalam. It says, فَأَمَّا سُنَّةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ مِنْ رَبِّهِ وَهُوَ كِتْمَانُ سِرِّهِ. The custom and tradition that one must adopt from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to hide and not disclose secrets. وقال الله عز وجل عالم الغيب لا يظهر على غيبه أحدا إلا من ارتضى من رسول. The Imam, he says that one must not disclose secrets. This is the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That as a believer you must have. Not to disclose secrets, not to expose others. At times this is the secrets that we may have. That we may know something about a person. It may be a bad trait, bad characteristic. Don't expose that individual. Again, with the purpose of helping that person to become a better human being. Of course, in the case of Yazid, he exposed himself and openly went against his sunnah. But someone who, hey, this individual made a mistake. This person still has some dignity, and I know this bad thing about that person, so I must, again, try to maintain that person's dignity. Help that individual. Or one, and this is, again, one of the things that we must adapt. Of course, the first one is general. One, I will say, again, our sisters, our aunts, our wives, our daughters. Again, acting based on this. This is, again, a trait that we as believers must have. It's a sunnah from Allah. Not to expose one's secrets. And I will say this, inshallah, all of us will do our duty and our responsibility. One of the secrets of sirr, because a lot of times our secrets are things which are precious to us. One of our series of secrets, especially among our sisters, is their beauty. And they should not disclose it. Only to those who, again, deserve. And if it's their husbands, the people who are mahram. their husbands, their brothers, their fathers. This is the trait of unbeliever. Kitmanu sir. Then the Imam, he says, وَأَمَّا سُنَّةُ مِن نَبِيِّهِ فَمَدَارَاتُ النَّاسِ. The sunnah that the believer should have, which is from the sunnah of Rasulullah, of his Prophet, is to manage one's relationships with people. And then the Imam, he explains, he says, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he commanded his Prophet to manage relationships with people. When he stated this in the Quran, and it is in Surah Al-A'raf, that is chapter 7, verse 199, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he states, خُذَ الْعَفْوَ وَأْمُرْ بِالْعُرْفِ وَأَعْرِضْ عَنِ الْجَاهِلِينَ. To manage one's affairs with people, these are the three things. خُذُ الْعَفْوَ, that if someone apologizes to you, someone has done something wrong, خُذُ الْعَفْوَ, accept their apology. Excuse people, give them excuses that someone has done something wrong, someone has offended you. Now they come to you to apologize. This is خُذُ الْعَفْوَ, accept their apology. Let bygones be bygones. Unfortunately, many of us, we hold grudges to the end of our lives. The sunnah of Rasulullah, no. وَأْمُرْ بِالْعُرْفِ, and enjoying good. Establish good customs among yourselves. وَأَعْرِضْ عَنِ الْجَاهِلِينَ, and keep yourself aloof from those who are ignorant, those who do not have knowledge. Again, why? Because the sunnah of the Prophet, the sunnah of Ahlul Bayt, the sunnah by which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala desires to guide mankind, in it is knowledge. And learning to apply it is wisdom. So, أَعْرِضْ عَنِ الْجَاهِلِينَ. Then the Imam says, وَأَمَّا سُنَّةُ مِنْ وَلِيِّهِ. Subhanallah. The trait that one should have, which is the trait of the wali, the imams. Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Ridha, he says, أَمَّا سُنَّةِ وَلِيِّهِ فَالصَّبْرُ فِي الْبَأْسَاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ, is to have patience in the most difficult and the most trying of circumstances. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states in the Quran, وَالصَّابِرِينَ فِي الْبَأْسَاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ, to be patient when you're faced with the harshest of circumstances. When you're faced with the most difficult of tasks. When you're faced with what seems to be impossible. This is the sunnah of our imams. And one of the greatest proofs of this and examples of this is the event of Karbala. That Imam Hussein, he was faced with, we can say, the impossible. Outnumbered 1,000 to 1. That who can bear to face those circumstances but the Imam, or one who has learned from the Imam and who has adopted the sunnah of Allah, the sunnah of Rasulullah, the sunnah of his Imam. And we see that in the companions of Imam Hussein. We see that in the messenger and the vicegerent of Imam Hussein, Muslim ibn Aqil. That in the face of difficulties, in the face of that which seemed to be impossible, because Muslim ibn Aqil, he learned from the Imams, he learned from Imam Ali, he learned from Imam al-Hasan al-Mujtaba, he learned from Imam Hussein that how to stand strong and to be patient in the most difficult of circumstances. And we know what circumstance Muslim ibn Aqil he found himself in, that when he went forth to Kufa to deliver the message of Imam Hussein, that your Imam is coming. Stand true to your word and back the Imam. But when Ibn Ziyad, he entered into Kufa, he changed the circumstances of Kufa. He captured the host of Muslim ibn Aqil, Hani ibn Urwa, and he killed Hani ibn Urwa. Muslim ibn Aqil, he found himself alone, wandering in the streets of Kufa. Though there were people with him before, and even up to the time of Maghrib, they said that when Muslim ibn Aqil, he went to make Maghrib, that the numbers had dwindled from thousands of people who were walking with Muslim to 10 people. And even after Maghrib, there was no one left until Muslim ibn Aqil, he was alone. Imagine yourselves. Imagine how you would feel in that circumstance. Feeling that you were lost. That you didn't know your way around the city. Not knowing where to go. Not knowing which corner to turn. That maybe someone is waiting for you to kill you. It's stated that Muslim ibn Aqil, he sat on one doorstep. This is the house of Taw'ah. When Taw'ah, she had heard some noise at her door, she went out and to see that, what is this noise? And she saw Muslim ibn Aqil, not knowing who he was. And she stated to him, Ya Abdullah, idhhab ila ahlik, that, oh servant of Allah, why don't you go home? Go to your family. It is not proper that you sit on the step of an old lady, that you're a man and you're not my mahram, so you should go home. Muslim ibn Aqil, he remained silent. That what was he to do? Where was he to go? Again, she stated, Ya Abdullah, that old servant of Allah, go home. Go to your family. It is late at night. Your family is probably missing you. But Muslim ibn Aqil, again, he didn't respond. When she said it the third time, Muslim ibn Aqil, he says, well, just if you give me some water. She brought water for Muslim ibn Aqil. He drank the water and he stood. She says, did you not finish your water? Are you not leaving? This is not a place for you. Go to your family. Your family is missing you. But Muslim ibn Aqil, he says, إِلَىٰ أَيْنَ أَذْهَبْ وَلَيْسَ لِي أَحْلٌ فِي هَذِهِ الْمَدِينَةِ. That where am I to go? That I have no family in this city. She says, why is that? Where are you from? He says, وَأَنَا مُسْلِمٌ بِبْنِ عَقِيلٍ رَسُولِ الْحُسَيْنِ. He says, I am Muslim ibn Aqil, the messenger of Imam Hussein. She says, وَأَنْتَ Muslim? Are you Muslim? You're that Muslim that Imam Hussein has sent? She says that you are in danger, your life is in danger. Why not come and you stay the night with me and tomorrow you can leave? So Muslim ibn Aqil, he went into the house of Taw'ah. She gave him refuge for that night. When the son of Taw'ah returned home, Bilal, who was an agent of Ibn Ziyad, he heard some noise in the room, and he asked his mother that what is going on. He saw his mother going back and forth through the room, sometimes taking words, sometimes taking food. He says, tell me, what is going on? Who was in this room? And she took from Bilal an oath. He says, I will tell you, but only if you promise not to mention anything. He says, I promise. She told him that we have given refuge to Muslim ibn Aqil. But like the people of Kufa, Bilal, he went out in the morning and he alerted the authorities that Muslim ibn Aqil was in his home. The army came and they surrounded the house of Tawa'ah. And Muslim ibn Aqil, when he heard the noise, he knew that he had to come out fighting. He came out of the house fighting, again, in those impossible circumstances. 1 against 1,000, outnumbered. How could one man fight such people? But it is stated that in the maqtal, in the history, that Muslim ibn Aqil, he came out. He says, قَاتَلَا قِتَالًا حَاشِمِيًّا, that he fought like a Hashimi. He fought, and people knew that this man, he was someone from Bani Hashim. That his bravery, his ability to fight off the enemy was none less than the Bani Hashim. But how much could one man he fight, especially when they were throwing stones upon the head of Muslim ibn Aqil. They were throwing stones and it was hitting the face of Muslim ibn Aqil. At one point, Muslim ibn Aqil, being worn down from battle, he is tired, he is thirsty. Muhammad ibn Ash'ath, he stated to Muslim ibn Aqil, he says, why are you killing yourself? Give up. Anta fil aman, that I will give you protection. I will promise you that I will not kill you. And Muslim ibn Aqil, he stated, he not trusting them. He says, how is this? How will you give me protection? And Muhammad ibn Ash'ath, he says that yes, we have a distant relation, but I will promise you, I will not kill you. Then Muslim ibn Aqil, tired, thirsty, he put down his arms. And then Muhammad ibn Ash'ath, he was taking Muslim ibn Aqil to the palace of Ibn Ziyad. As they were going to the palace of Ibn Ziyad, some state that this happened in the palace, some narrate that it happened before. They saw Muslim ibn Aqil, he was crying. He was crying. And then it is stated that how does a soldier, so how does someone who is brave as you, كيف تبكي, how is it that you're crying? And Muslim ibn Aqil, he responded, لا أبكي لنفسي, I don't cry for myself. أبكي للمقبلين إلي, I am crying for those who are coming, those who are on their way to meet me, those who are in the path to Kufa. أبكي للحسين وآل حسين, I am crying for Hussein, I am crying for the family of Hussein, that they are coming to Kufa thinking they will have support, but there will be no one to support them. And then Muslim ibn Aqil, he requested, he says, you have given me protection, I request one thing, just one thing, send someone to Hussein, send someone to Imam Hussein, to my Mawlai, and let him know not to come to Kufa. Let him know that the people of Kufa have betrayed him. Let him know that if he comes, that his life is in danger. But Muhammad ibn Ash'ath, he says, I will not do this. This is not my business. That he will come, and Ibn Ziyad wants him to come. And then Muslim ibn Aqil, he knew that his own life was in danger, that he will be killed, and he wanted to give his salams one last time to his Mawlai. So he turned towards Mecca. He turned towards Mecca, and in some of the narrations it said that when he entered into the palace of Ibn Ziyad, that he did not give salams. And they asked him that, why did you give salams? He says, there's only one person that I will give salams to, and that is my Imam, that is my Mawlai. He stated, Assalamu alayka ya Mawlai, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdillahi al-Husayn. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. راجعون وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. اللهم بحق هذه المجلس الحسيني اغفر ذنوبنا واستر عيوبنا وقضي حوائجنا واشفي مرضانا وارحم أمواتنا وعجل فرج مولانا صاحب العصر والزمان، واجعلنا من أعوانه وانصاره والمستشهدين بين يديه بحق محمد وآله الطاهرين.